Greenock is a town and administrative centre in the Inverclyde council area in Scotland and a former borough within the historic county of Renfrewshire, located in the west-central Lowlands of Scotland. It forms part of a contiguous urban area with Gourock to the west and Port Glasgow to the east. The 2011 census showed that Greenock had a population of 44,248, a decrease from the 46,861 recorded in the 2001 census. It lies on the south bank of the Clyde at the tail of the bank, where the River Clyde expands into the Firth of Clyde. History. The name of the town has had various spellings over time. It was printed in early Acts of Parliament as Greenock, Greenhock, Greenock, Greenhock, Greenock, and later as Greenock. Old Presbyterial records used Greenock, a common spelling, until it was changed to Greenock around 1700. The origin of the name is unknown. Suggested sources have included the common Brittonic, Graenog, a gravelly or sandy place which accurately describes the foreshore before the docks and piers were constructed, or Gaelic meaning a sunny place, which Greenockians have thought an improbable description. It has also been suggested that Greencrock, or Sunny Hill, could refer to the hill on which the castle and mansion house stood, but this has not found much support. The spelling Greenock was found in two factory accounts dating back to 1717, and a legend developed of a green oak tree at the edge of the Clyde at William Street being used by fishermen to tie up the boats. This has been generally dismissed as imaginative folk etymology, but the image has frequently been used as an emblem or logo, carved on public buildings, used on banners and badges, and was once emblazoned on the local cooperative society emblem. The town's modern indoor shopping centre is called the Oak Mall and uses a green tree as its logo. The name is also recalled in a local song. Significantly, no green oak appears on the town's coat of arms, which features the three chalices of the shore stewards, a sailing ship in full sail and two herring above the motto Godspeed Greenock. Anecdotal evidence suggests that there was a green oak tree, situated in Cathcart Square, at the top end of William Street, close to the Oak Mall. Indeed, a horseshoe set into the cobblestones, between the Midkirk Church and the central feature of the square, was where it once, supposedly, grew. Early history, baronies and kirks. Hugh de Greenock was created as Scottish baron in 1296, and the seat of the feudal barony of Greenock was apparently what became East.The Castle. Around 1400 his successor Malcolm Galbraith died with no sons, and his estate was divided between his two daughters to become two baronies. The eldest inherited East.The and married a Crawford, while West.The went to the younger daughter, who married Shaw of Sorky. Around 1540 the adjoining barony of Thanet was passed to the Shaw family, extending the holdings westward to the boundary of Gourock, and in 1542 Sir John Shaw founded West.The Castle. The Scottish Reformation of 1560 closed the chapels in the parish, and as the parish church was some 10 kilometres distant at Inverclyde over a difficult route which was impassable in winter, in 1589 John Shaw obtained a charter from King James VI to build a kirk for the poor people upon his lands, who were all fishers and of a reasonable number. Later known as the Old Kirk or the Old West Kirk, it was constructed on the west bank of the Westburn estuary and is reputed to have been the first Protestant church built in Scotland after the Reformation. Fishing villages and harbours. The coast of Greenock formed a broad bay with three smaller indentations. The Bay of Quick was known as a safe anchorage as far back as 1164. To its east, a sandy bay ran eastwards from the Old Kirk and the Westburn as far as West.The Castle. The fishing village of Greenock developed along this bay. and around 1635 Sir John Shore had a jetty built into the bay which became known as Sir John's Bay. In that year he obtained a charter raising Greenock to a borough of barony with rights to a weekly market. Further east, St. Lawrence Bay curved round past the Crawford barony of East Greenock to Garvell Point, when a pier was built making the bay an important harbour. The fishing village of Cartsburn gained the alternative name of Crawford.It. In 1642 it was made into the borough of barony of Crawford.It, and part of the ill-fated Darien scheme set out from this pier in 1697. This town was later renamed Cartsburn. The fishing trade grew prosperous, with barrels of salted herring exported widely, and shipping trade developed. As seagoing ships could not go further up the River Clyde, the Glasgow merchants, including the tobacco lords, wanted harbour access, but were in disputes with Greenock over harbour dues and warehouses. They tried to buy the Garvell estate for a harbour when East Greenock lands were put up for sale to meet debts, but were outbid by Sir John Shore, who then got a Crown Charter of 1670 uniting East and West Greenock into the borough barony of Greenock. A separate barony of Cartsburn was created, the first baron being Thomas Crawford. In 1668 the city of Glasgow got the lease of 13 acres of land upriver close to Newark Castle, and construction promptly started on new Port Glasgow harbour, which by 1710 had the principal Clyde custom house. In 1696 and 1700 Shore and residents of the town made unsuccessful bids to the Scottish Parliament for grants for a Greenock harbour. Then, when the Act of Union 1707 opened up trade to the Americas, they raised their own funds. The work was completed in 1710, with quays extended out into Sir John's Bay to enclose the harbour. In 1711 the shipbuilding industry was founded when Scots leased ground between the harbour and the Westburn to build fishing boats. Greenock rapidly became a major port and shipbuilding centre, and though from 1774 deepening of the River Clyde increasingly allowed ships to take merchandise directly to Glasgow, merchants continued to use Greenock harbour. The American Revolutionary War temporarily interrupted trade, and the gun battery of Fort Beauclerk near the Westburn was extended to guard against the threat of privateers, but the emphasis shifted to wider markets including imports of rum and sugar from the Caribbean, wines from Spain, and fish from North America. A whaling business operated for about 40 years. Custom house and steamboats. In 1714 Greenock became a custom house port as a branch of Port Glasgow, and for a period this operated from rooms leased in Greenock. Receipts rose rapidly from the 1770s, and in 1778 the custom house moved to new-built premises at the west quay of the harbour. By 1791 a new pier was constructed at the east quay. In 1812 Europe's first steamboat service was introduced by P.S. Comet with frequent sailings between Glasgow, Greenock and Helensburgh, and as trade built up the pier became known as Steamboat Quay. The custom house needed larger premises, and in May 1817 the foundation stone was laid at the quay for a custom house building designed by William Byrne, which was completed in 1818. Its gracious neoclassical architecture features a Grecian Doric portico looking out over the quayside, which was given the name Custom House Quay. In 1828 the Custom House was praised as the grand national structure in the highest style of elegance. By then there were scheduled steamboat sailings to Belfast, Londonderry, Liverpool, Inverness, Campbelltown, the Hebrides, and all the principal places in the Highlands. The Custom House underwent extensive refurbishment which was completed in 1989 and, until closure of the building in 20 2010, housed a Customs and Excise Museum which was open to the public. In June 2008, HM Revenue and Customs announced that the building would close in 2011 as part of a rationalisation project, with any jobs being transferred to offices in Glasgow. And despite a campaign to oppose these plans, the building closed in August 2010. Riverside Inverclyde arranged further refurbishment works, and in 2013 announced that space had already been let to companies including Toshiba, which had planning permission to form meeting rooms and an executive office in the building. Industry and railways. Greenock became a centre of industry, with water power being used to process imported goods. In 1827, Loch Tom was constructed as a reservoir with the cut aqueduct, bringing water to 2 lines of falls for water mills to power a paper mill, cotton and woolen mills, sugar refineries and shipbuilding. Greenock's central railway station at Cathcart Street opened in 1841, for the first time providing a fast route from Glasgow to the coast, linking up with Clyde steamer services. The provision of this new line eliminated the necessity of taking the steamer all the way down river from Glasgow. In 1869, the Caledonian Railway was bypassed by the rival Glasgow and South Western Railway, which opened a station on the waterfront at Prince's Pier. To regain custom, the Caledonian Railway extended the Glasgow, Paisley and Greenock Railway west to Gourock. This line was built to run inland through deep cuttings and tunnels to avoid disturbance to the villas of Greenock's West End. The Gourock line opened in 1889. Victoria Tower. Greenock's increasing importance and wealth was manifested in the construction of the Italianate municipal buildings, whose Victoria Tower, completed in 1886, stands 245 feet tall. Begun 5 years previously in a competition won by architects H&D, Berkeley, it exceeds the height of the Tower of Glasgow City Chambers by more than a metre. The municipal buildings remain uncompleted, as a local businessman called Robert Cowan refused to sell his building in front of the tower for less than his own price, preventing completion of the right-hand facade of the southern elevation. Villas. Further evidence of this wealth can be seen in the large villas of Greenock's West End, one-time home to the ship owners, industrialists and investors. The area is fronted by the mile-long sweep of the esplanade with its views across the Clydecoast, which almost convinces the visitor that no heavy industry could have been anywhere nearby. Battery Park and torpedoes. At Fort Matilda Railway Station, the Newton Street Railway Tunnel emerges near the coast. The excavated material from the construction of the tunnel was used as landfill to the west of the old coastal gun emplacement of Fort Matilda, forming a level area which became the playing fields of Battery Park. In 1907, the Admiralty compulsorily purchased part of this land and constructed the Clyde Torpedo Factory, which opened in 1910, with 700 workers transferred from the Royal Arsenal, Woolwich. The site was tasked with designing and testing of torpedoes. These were then tested in Loch Long. During the Second World War, the site switched entirely to manufacturing torpedoes. The original gun battery site was occupied by the Navy buildings. The main office is just to the east of the torpedo factory buildings. Following WW2 in 1947, the site became fully committed to R&D as the Torpedo Experimental Establishment. T was closed in 1959, when all torpedo research, development and design were concentrated at the newly formed Admiralty Underwater Weapons Establishment, Portland. Old West Kirk. A church had been established in Greenock in 1591 under the patronage of John Shaw, the first built in Scotland since the Reformation. In 1926, to make way for expansion of the Harland and Amp Wolf shipyard, the old West Kirk was relocated to a new site on the esplanade where it still stands. The church is notable for stained glass by artists such as Dante Gabriel Rossetti and Sir Edward Burne-Jones. The church has a website. Second World War. Greenock suffered badly during the Second World War, and its anchorage at the tail of the bank became the base for the Home Fleet as well as the main assembly point for Atlantic convoys. On the 30th of April 1940, the French Vauquelin-class destroyer Census.It blew up off Greenock with heavy loss of life following an accident involving two of her own torpedoes. Although this disaster occurred before the Free French naval forces were established, many people tend to regard the Cross of Lorraine on Lyle Hill as a memorial to the loss of the Census.It as well as to the later losses of the Free French naval vessels which sailed from the town. On the nights of the 6th of May and the 7th of May 1941, around 300 Luftwaffe aircraft attacked the town in the Greenock Blitz. A large building housing a drapery business constructed on Cowan's property at the corner of the municipal buildings was badly damaged and was demolished, leaving the blank brick corner area still known as Cowan's Corner. This was later set as a garden for the blind. The original blank brick of Cowan's Corner was covered in 2008 as part of the continuing work to improve the look of the town centre. Post-war years. Greenock thrived in the post-war years, but as the heavy industries declined in the 1970s and 1980s, unemployment became a major problem, and it has only been in the last 10 years with reinvestment and the redevelopment of large sections of the town that the local economy has started to revive. Tourism has appeared as an unexpected bonus with the development of the Clyde Port Container Terminal as an ocean terminal for cruise ships crossing the Atlantic. Students who do not travel further afield for study often attend the Greenock campus of West College. Greenock reached its population peak in 1921 and was once the sixth largest town in Scotland. Governance. Until 1974, Greenock was a parliamentary borough in its own right. It was merged with Port Glasgow to form Greenock and Port Glasgow constituency. In 1997 it became Greenock and Inverclyde. After the redistribution of Scottish seats, it was merged into an enlarged Inverclyde constituency, the first time in political history that Greenock has not been named in a parliamentary seat. Greenock and Inverclyde remains a Scottish Parliament constituency. Health. The Inverclyde Royal Hospital is located in Greenock, serving the population of Inverclyde, Lugs, the Isle of Bute and the Cowal Peninsula. Ravenscraig Hospital deals with psychiatric day patients, referrals and specialised prescribing. Lang Hill Clinic, situated behind Inverclyde Royal Hospital, is now the main psychiatric hospital with an IPCU unit and day hospital alongside the main psychiatric ward. Geography. Areas and suburbs. Arranview, Bogston, Bow Farm, Braeside, Brankton, Bridgend, Broomhill, Cartsburn, Cornhaddock, Fancy Farm, Fort Matilda, Gibbs Hill, Greenock West, Grieve Hill, Hull Farm, Larkfield, Lull Hill, Lindach, Overton, Pennyfern, Strone Farm in Win Hill. Spango Valley is located to the west of the town. Economy. Historically, the town relied on shipbuilding, sugar refining and wool manufacturing for employment, but none of these industries are today part of Greenock's economy. More recently, the town relied heavily on electronics manufacture. However, this has given way mostly to call center business, insurance, banking and shipping export. The Fleming and Reed Merino wool mill employed 500 people, mostly women, and produced wool garments spun and woven at the mill. This mill was at the corner of Drumfrogger Road and Mill Road. As of October 2012, Greenock has an unemployment rate of 5.3%, above the Scottish average of 3.9%. Shipbuilding. In the early 17th century, the first pier was built in Greenock. Shipbuilding was already an important employer by this time. The first proper harbour was constructed in 1710, and the first well-known shipbuilders, Scott's Shipbuilding and Engineering Company, was established the following year. It was the oldest shipbuilding business in the world and gained numerous contracts with the Royal Navy from 1806, building ships such as the Glasgow. In 1967, Scott's was merged with Lithgow's the same year, becoming Scott-Lithgow, which was later nationalised as part of British Shipbuilders in 1977. For the 1800 to 1980, many thousands of people worked to design, build and repair ships. The reduction in shipbuilding in the 1970s and 1980s meant that none of these companies are still trading. Greenock shipbuilders included Scott's, Brown's, William Lithgow's, Ferguson's, Head the Boat Builder. Other marine engineering-related companies included engine makers, Kincaid's, Scott's, Rankin and Blackmore, ship repair and Hastings for steering gear. Yacht builders included Adams and McLean. Other yards included Cartsburn, Cartsdyke, and Klondike, all of which closed during the 1970s and 1980s due to competition from South Korea and Japan. Part of the site of the Scott's Yard is now an e-call centre. Ship repair work continues at the Garvel and Inchgreen dry docks, and shipbuilding continues at Ferguson Shipbuilders in nearby Port Glasgow. Shipping. Freight traffic is handled at the container cranes of Greenock's Ocean Terminal, at Prince's Pier, which was constructed for the Glasgow and South Western Railway. The same terminal is a regular port of call for cruise liners visiting the west of Scotland. Greenock was a regular port of call for Cunard Line and Canadian Pacific in the 1950s and 1960s. Ships on the Montreal to Liverpool transit would anchor at the tail of the bank off Greenock in the Firth of Clyde, and steam paddle wheel ferries would service the liners. Cunard operated the RMS Ivernia, RMS Saxonia, RMS Corinthia and RMS Sylvania. These four ships were built at John Brown and Amp Company shipyards, typically 22,000 tons, twin-screw, 600-passenger. CP operated the Empress of Britain, Empress of Canada and Empress of England. Greenock's Great Harbour is one of the three main ports providing marine services support to the Royal Navy, in dual-site operation with Fislane at HMNB Clyde on the Gourock. 240 staff of the former Royal Maritime Auxiliary Service were transferred to Serco Denham under a 15-year £1 billion PFI contract awarded in December 2007. This facility means that Admiralty boats and tugs are a common sight on the Clyde. Greenock's attractive esplanade provides a gently curving river sidewalk just over a mile long, extending to the west from Ocean Terminal to the Royal West of Scotland Amateur Boat Club sailing, kayaking and rowing facilities and clubhouse at the corner of the Navy buildings, which housed a main Her Majesty's Coast Guard Centre until it closed in December 2012, as well as a Royal Naval Reserve establishment, HMS Dalriada. Sugar refining began in Greenock in 1765. John Walker began a sugar refinery in Greenock in 1850, followed by the prominent local cooper and shipowner Abram Lyle, who, with four partners, purchased the Glebe Sugar Refinery in 1865. Another 12 refineries were active at one point. The most successful of these was Tate and Amp Lyle. It was formed from a merger in 1921 between Abram Lyle, who had expanded into Plaistow, and Henry Tate, who had set up a sugar refinery in Liverpool and had expanded into London. By the end of the 19th century, around 400 ships a year were transporting sugar from Caribbean holdings to Greenock for processing. There were 14 sugar refineries, including the Westburn, Walkers, the Glebe, Lockor and Ferguson and Dempster, plus a sugar beet factory on Ingleston Street. Tobacco from the Americas also arrived here. When Tate and Lyle finally closed its Greenock refinery in 1997, it brought to an end the town's 150-year-old connections with sugar manufacture. A newly built sugar warehouse continued shipping operations at Greenock's Ocean Terminal. The former sugar warehouse at the James Watt Dock was by then scheduled as a Category A listed building, as a fine example of early industrial architecture, with an unusual feature of a colonnade of cast-ironed columns forming a sheltered unloading area next to the quayside. This building has since lain empty, with various schemes being proposed for conversion and restoration. The photographs show the building still intact in February 2006, but a fire on the evening of the 12th of June 2006 caused severe damage to much of the building before being brought under control in the early hours of 13 June. The local council confirmed that parts of the building will have to be taken down to ensure public safety, but promised an investigation and emphasized the importance of this World Heritage building. Fortunately, in 2007, contracts to develop the sugar refinery into housing went ahead, and the building is slowly being restored to its grand spectacle alongside the ever increasingly developing waterfront of the east end of Greenock. Many new and exciting housing projects combining new environmentally friendly technologies along with historically fashioned architecture are restoring Greenock's waterfront fascia to its once glorious former self. Electronics. Since IBM arrived in the town in 1951, electronics and light manufacturing have, until recently, been the mainstay of local employment. Texas Instruments has run a silicon wafer manufacturing plant in the town since 1970. However, with manufacturing moving to Eastern Europe and Asia, work has shifted to the service sector, especially call centers. and IBM both have major call center operations in Greenock, while the Royal Bank of Scotland Mortgage Centre processes mortgage applications from throughout the UK and AMP Ireland. IBM have in recent years curtailed their operations greatly in the area. Sandminer, another electronics company, took over much of the IBM installation but moved 370 jobs to Hungary in 2006. The Sandminer plant, which consisted of the former IBM AMDC and modules buildings 1 to 5, has since ceased operation and was demolished in 2009. The Spanger Valley site was rebranded as Valley Park in late 2009. Lenovo has also relocated away from Greenock, and the plant is now at 10% of the 1,999 2,000 capacity trade and commerce. Greenock's main shopping thoroughfare was Hamilton Street, which connected West Blackhall Street in the west to Clyde Square in the east. In 1975 it disappeared along with several other streets as the area was pedestrianised as Hamilton Way. In the 1990s it was refurbished again, and the Oak Mall indoor shopping centre now forms the central feature of the town, and provides most of the major retail shops in Inverclyde, with approximately 85 units, with main anchor stores including Marks and Spencer, Boots, Burton, Argos, The Body Shop, Clark's, and a newly opened New Look store. Marks and Spencer is in its original building, which was simply built round during the first phase of pedestrianisation. In addition, two major supermarkets, Tesco and Morrison's, are sited near the mall. A retail estate is located nearby, in front of the waterfront swimming pool and leisure centre, and the streets around the mall provide a large number of smaller shops. Smaller groups of shops in most of the areas of the town provide for day-to-day needs, but most of the specialist shops are in the town centre. The town contains one diplomatic mission, an Italian consulate,